On Fanalysis, we take the analytics of fantasy football combined with the metrics of sports betting to find you the sharpest angles. And for that, we bring in an expert in sports investment analysis. It is Jared Smith. I like the fantasy football and the sports betting analogy here because it's like putting those two numbers into this primordial soup, and what is born is the sharp angle, and that's what you give us here. This is how you come up with your top plays. You just dip into that primordial soup and you figure out what the best plays are. This week, you're going to be starting off with the Patriots and the Niners in this game. New England is a 2.5-point favorite in this game right now. They're sitting in third place in the division. Are you reading their ineffectiveness as a byproduct of limited practices because of COVID?
I think that's definitely something to take into account, Steve. I think when you look at this Patriots team top to bottom, they're still a very good football team with a lot of really good weapons. They're really well coached, but they've got a quarterback that has been out of the league for quite some time, and now he's back in the league, and now he missed some time, and now he's on the shelf, and we don't know if he's playing. He is playing. Very tough to kind of overcome that when you're new to a football team. Now, we're going to learn a lot about this Patriots team this week. This is a Patriots team that has lost 2 games in a row. They haven't lost 3 in a row since 2002. Very long time since they've had an extended losing streak in New England. And I do think that you're going to get their best effort this week, and I do think that the practice time is going to help a little bit of continuity with Cam Newton. Now, I think it's actually also a good buy low spot on the Patriots. We don't talk about that very often because they're not a down team very much, but the odds are kind of tilting against them. You're getting a Pats team at home under a field goal, which I think is a very good price. They run the ball very effectively. They're second in the league in rushing yards per game. I think they take a little bit of the pressure off Cam Newton a little bit this week. I think he threw 2 or 3 interceptions last week. Less passes, more running this week for the Patriots, and I think they get a win.
But then you flip things over and you look at the 49ers, who have been very mercurial. You know, you get some big wins, you get some ugly losses, but the return of Jimmy G has to impact how that offense is going to be running.
And it's the revenge game for Jimmy G, getting traded from New England to San Francisco. So there's some drama dripping in this game, aside from just the X's and O's. So I'm sure Jimmy G wants this game, and I'm sure Bill Belichick knows all of the things about that ankle that are going to disrupt him. It's all about the ankle for Jimmy G. That high ankle sprain certainly bothered him in the game against Miami, got pulled at halftime. He looked slightly healthier last week, but not 100%. They were showing some instant replays of his throws, and you could tell he was still kind of, not putting all of his weight on that back leg, and that's going to be the importance for him. I'm sure he's going to see a lot of pressure from that aggressive Patriots defense on Sunday.
And he has the receivers. He has the offense around him, the speed around him to make plays, especially if it's a Patriots defense that hasn't been practicing because of COVID, and we know that their chemistry and their familiarity with one another is really what makes that defense what it is.
Yeah, and the defense played well on Sunday against the Broncos. They only gave up 18 points, so they're certainly not a defense that has been gashed. And I do think this is a good spot. They're going to get a lot of pressure on Jimmy G this week, and I'm not betting against Bill Belichick to lose 3 in a row. That does not happen very often, and I don't think it happens this week.
And you're not going to be the guy to do it. All right, the Raiders, I can understand that. Raiders are 4-point dogs to the Bucs right now. This game was actually off the board earlier this week because the entire Raiders offensive line was sent home because of COVID. So how do you see this now?
Well, this is, talk about the worst week to be, without your offensive line for a significant period in practice. I didn't think I'd be saying this before the season starts. I knew this team was on my radar, the Bucs, but I didn't think their defense would be arguably the best defense in the NFL. According to the efficiency ratings, they are the best defense in the NFL. They get after you. Todd Bowles has an aggressive blitzing scheme. They're going to get in Derek Carr's face on Sunday night. And what a great spot for Tom Brady. He's going to be playing 3 primetime games over the next 3 weeks. We're going to be seeing a lot of our good friend Tom Brady in a very different uniform. And I think every week, Steve, he has looked a little bit better, just a little better, understanding that offense a little bit more. The weapons are getting a little healthier with Godwin and Evans. Those guys need to be in the lineup. But I think the Bucs continue to be one of the best and most underrated teams in the NFL, especially defensively. I think this is one of my better spots of the week because the Raiders' offensive line being a little bit unsettled makes it even harder for them to protect Derek Carr, and this blitzing Bucs defense is going to get after him on Sunday night.
I got to look at the Bucs roster again. Warren Sapp, Simeon Rice, those guys are not on that defensive line for the Bucs this year. Just making sure.
No,
but
definitely
they're
not.
playing like it right now, though.
They are, and they don't have a lot of big stars on this D-line either. I mean, they're doing it with a lot of no-name guys. And another thing to keep in mind in this game, and this is the Raiders haven't been known for their discipline over the last couple of seasons under John Gruden. They have struggled coming off of the bye. They've lost both of their last 2 games, last 2 years under Gruden, coming off the bye by double digits. So I don't necessarily think it's a good thing that the Raiders have had a week off. And they've had a week off to kind of see all of these awesome press clippings of them beating the Chiefs and how great they played in that game. That can be tough for a team that hasn't really experienced success. I think it's a really good spot for the Bucs on the road this week.
And when you take a deeper dive into what the Tampa offense has been doing, they're averaging 34 points per game in their wins. And the Raiders' DVOA right now is 31st. That spells a high-scoring game for Tampa.
100%. And Brady's one of the best deep ball throwers in the league. You wouldn't think that, considering he's a little older and maybe doesn't have the arm strength that he does, but he is so accurate. And when it comes to deep balls, it's about the timing, Steve. And then he has really great timing with these receivers. I love Tampa Bay this week. Great spot for them.
All right, you're also targeting the Browns and the Bengals game, but not for the spread. You're looking at the first half over-under at 24.5. Why are you looking at that?
Well, see, these teams are very interesting handicaps, especially Cleveland. So Cleveland, you know, all the talk about Baker Mayfield and all the talk about Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham and how good their weapons are. The Browns at their core are a running football team. That's what they want to do. They want to get after you on the ground. They've got a big, beefy offensive line. Kareem Hunt can just take it right downhill. They're the best rushing team in the NFL. And a common misconception is teams who run the ball well and keep the clock moving, those games trend under. I like to think on the contrarian side of that, when you're in the red zone and you're trying to find the difference between a field goal and a touchdown, the running game is what gets you across the goal line. So I think teams that have really good rushing attacks trend to go over, especially early in the game. And I really, really like this first half over. The Browns are the only team in the NFL that have not played a first half under this season. They are 6-0 to the first half over. And Joe Burrow's been playing pretty well, Steve. 4 300-yard games. The rookie record is 6. So he's probably going to break that rookie record this season. Burrow and the Bengals offense, they've already played a really high-scoring game against Cleveland earlier this season. That game went over in the first half, and I think this one goes over the first half number as well.
This is a very Uber-specific prop that you're playing on this game here. And I'm curious how you came to putting your finger on this one, especially when you look at what Baker Mayfield only completed 10 passes for 119 yards in his last game, and a lot of people are wondering whether Mayfield is broken. Do you feel that way?
He's a little banged up right now, Steve. The Steelers really got under his skin. They really got into him, and he already had some rib injuries and some issues in his areas of concern. Those are, to me, the ribs is like, and the ankle for Jimmy G, those are the 2 toughest injuries for a quarterback because you're exposed when you're throwing the football. And yeah, Baker definitely has a little bit of armor that he needs to bulk up around the sides to get healthy. But I still think at his core, he's a tough kid. He's a good quarterback. And this series has trended over of late. It felt like fireworks. We've had fireworks in the early game between these 2 teams. And I know it's a granular pick, but I think the first half over cashes here.
All right, yeah. Well, we know it's not going to be freezing there. So,
no.
The temperatures aren't going to be as much of an issue as we might have seen in the past, because the Cincinnati-Cleveland games in the past we've seen can be horrific snow games. Each week, Las Vegas continues to make a dog out of the Jets. The spread, though, just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And this week, the Bills are favored by 13.5 points. Is that a fair line?
I think we're getting there. And I actually think with the Sam Darnold news that he's practiced and he's looked better in practice over the last 2 days, and as this game gets closer to Sunday, I actually think the line will float closer to the Jets. I don't think this is going to go over 2 touchdowns. I think next week's game against the Chiefs, that's a different story. But for this week, divisional matchup, I think the line's about right. I'm not running to the window crazy about the Bills because they've had some issues as well, especially defensively. But you can't, and this pains me. I've been a Jets fan since birth. You can't back this Jets team with all the negative, storylines, all the negative, narratives that we're hearing coming out of the locker room and from the facility. You can't back this team until they show you that they're ready to play football. And we haven't seen that yet this season. So I'm not crazy about the Bills side. Again, they have their warts, but Josh Allen's played really well. I think the Bills win this game by double digits. Let's just leave it at that.
Okay, well, Yeah, the Jets lose on an average by double digits, and they can only score about 12 points per game.
Even maybe they lose by 10 and they cover.
Right, there you go. Then there's a win, at least somewhat of a win. Does it help that Sam Darnold is practicing more and it's starting to look more and more like he'll play, even though some of his other plays, his targets might not be there?
I mean, I think it's better than the option of Joe Flacco, but I still think if you don't have the complete, you can't bake a cake without all the ingredients, Steve.
Right.
And they do not have all the ingredients. They are missing several key ingredients to bake an offensive.
They're baking the cake with baking soda instead of baking powder right now.
Yeah, and no sugar. It's like, it tastes. You're like, wait, what does this taste like? It's not a great looking, slice. You when you look at it at the table, you're like, no, I think I'm good. But I think eventually they are going to have to surround Sam or whoever they do get in to play quarterback with some weapons, because I think it's obvious that who they had this year was not the right fit.
Yeah, well, that's certainly something we're going to be keeping an eye on. All right. Jared, thank you so much for all your insights at that. That's a look at his top plays of the week. But make sure you check out our other segment on the Jets, because it's on the Jets prop bets that maybe deserve a closer look moving forward. For Jared Smith, I'm Steve Overmyer. This is Fanalysis.